The year was 1854, when Philip Gross boarded a ship bound for America. Born in 1809 in Siebersbach, a town in the Rhine River Valley, he was 45 years old, hardly the time to begin a new life in a distant land. Widowed, he had newly remarried to Magdalena Graf, herself a widow with 5 children. After arriving in the United States, they came to Milwaukee, a growing city on the shores of Lake Michigan that was already known as the German Athens of America. But Philip was looking for something more than that city could offer. In 1854 and 1855, a wave of anti-immigrant violence swept across northern cities as mobs attacked German and Irish neighborhoods, and a new political party reared its head. The American Party aimed at requiring a 21-year residency for people seeking citizenship and restricting public offices to native-born Americans. In response, Wilhelm Fender, a recent immigrant himself, proposed to a national convention of Turners, the country's largest secular organization of Germans, that they build a new town on the frontier where they could live out their ideals without outside interference and threats of violence. In its original charter, Fender stated that the purpose of the town would concern itself with the promotion of trade and industry, the arts and sciences, and at the same time foster good German fellowship and the right spirit. It might have been that vision that drew Philip Gross to New Ulm in 1856. He was a baker by trade, but he saw that the town needed a place for travelers to stay. Hundreds of new settlers passed through the town each month. Joined by his stepson, John Graf, he opened the Minnesota House, which he described as a large tavern and boarding house, the first of its kind in New Ulm. It was so successful that 4 years later, in 1860, he erected a new wood-frame hotel with room for as many as 40 overnight guests, in addition to providing a home for his extended family. Philip wanted it to be a place for the community to gather, whether it was in the Rathskeller in the basement or on the second floor with its large hall for public meetings. Every Sunday, Gross's hotel hosted a dance. Women were admitted for free, and beer was sold at a discount, 2 glasses for 5 cents. The same year that the new hotel opened its doors, the dark clouds of civil war gathered over the nation. Following the attack on Fort Sumter in April 1861, they marched off to fight. Too old to join them? In support, Philip Gross changed the name of his establishment to the Union Hotel. As the war entered its second year and Northern losses mounted, President Lincoln issued a call for an additional 300,000 volunteers. In response, on Sunday, August 17, 1862, Brown County residents gathered here at the Union Hotel for a rally to encourage enlistment. Thomas Galbraith, the Indian agent at the nearby reservation, was the principal speaker, and he assured those present that there was no need to worry about the Dakota. Fired with patriotism, the crowd decided to send a recruiting party out into Milford Township the next day. That morning, they hitched up several wagons to ride into the countryside, and left town to the sounds of loud cheers and the sight of flags snapping in the breeze. But outside of town, the wagons were attacked by the Dakota, leaving the recruiting party dead on the roadside. On that same day, 51 settlers would be killed, including Philip Gross's stepdaughter Barbara, her husband, and her 2 children. As word spread, farmers placed their families in wagons and headed for New Ulm. Hastily, the townspeople threw up a makeshift barricade, extending 3 blocks along both sides of Minnesota Street. By the afternoon of the following day, August 19th, the town was under attack from a small force of Dakota. The fighting was fierce, finally broken by a thunderstorm in the late afternoon. When reinforcements from St. Peter reached town, they made their headquarters in the Union Hotel, and the untrained, poorly armed soldiers were quickly posted along the barricade. Among them was Horace Austin, a future governor of Minnesota. As darkness fell over the embattled town, Austin walked up and down the barricades, checking the line of defense. He was shocked when he found a long stretch had been abandoned. Asking around, he found the absent sentinels were drinking beer in Philip Gross's saloon. He ordered them back to their posts. Over the next 6 days, they waited and watched as refugees from nearby farms made their way to safety. The wounded were brought to makeshift hospitals. And then, on August 23rd, the attack was renewed, this time with a much larger force of Dakota. It would be the largest battle over a town in the United States since 1776. By the end of the fighting, there were around 30 dead within the town. Charles Flandreau, the commander of the defense of New Ulm, issued the following order: detail 10 men from New Ulm Company to bury dead. Let the interments be made near Gross's, inside the lines. After the second battle, the defenders decided that rather than risk another attack, everyone would evacuate the town for the safety of Mankato and St. Peter. On Monday morning, the barricades came down, and the townspeople climbed aboard the wagons. The caravan reached Mankato late in the evening. Salmon Buell, Flandreau's chief aide, watched as the refugees from New Ulm marched by. Many have left or lost all. Even their nearest and dearest ones lie buried without coffin, book, or bell where they died, and not to mark the spot. The survivors, he asked, are going where? God knows. Anywhere, away from the Indians. Now abandoned, New Ulm fell victim to looters. Some say the Dakota, others say that unprincipled white men picked through the homes and shops, walking away with family treasures. When Philip Gross returned 10 days later, he found the hotel's windows and doors smashed and plaster walls lying in ruin, with furniture, candlesticks, and silverware all gone. He wrote, "Everything which was left then was either broken and destroyed or carried away." Although he was in his 50s, Gross joined the local militia and served on picket duty along the fortress-like walls that now surrounded the town. Upstairs, federal troops camped out in the hall on the second floor. After the Dakota War, many lost hope and moved away. The German-language newspaper, the Minnesota Stadtzeitung, lamented, "So terrible is this blow, so appalling the destruction of belongings and lives, it causes us to ask if New Ulm will not be resurrected from the ashes." But it was resurrected, in part due to people like Philip Gross, who had not given up on his dream. People remembered Gross as quiet and unassuming, but underneath, as a man of determined opinions. That determination pushed him to quickly go to work, and within weeks the hotel again opened its doors. Because of the destruction of Turner Hall, the Union Hotel became even more important as a community center. The second floor became a popular venue for the plays, concerts, and dances, so loved by German Americans. With peace came prosperity, and across Minnesota, railroad construction began in earnest after the Civil War. In 1871, crews laying tracks for the Winona and St. Peter Railroad reached New Ulm, bringing in more and more visitors to the growing city and to Philip Gross's hotel. Then, on the evening of July 5th, 1875, the whistle from the city mill summoned New Ulm residents to the rear of the hotel, where a fire swept through its large barn. As the flames rose, it became clear that the hotel itself could not be saved. Around 2 a.m, the walls collapsed, and Philip Gross's dream lay in ashes. Rather than giving up, Philip Gross, now 66 years old, immediately announced that he would rebuild the hotel, turning to his friend Julius Berendt for help. Berendt was the city's most respected architect and contractor, and is best known now as the father of the Herman Monument. The new hotel, however, did not have a public hall on the second floor, but that hardly quenched Philip Gross's love for the arts. In 1878, he joined with his friend Joseph Bobletter to purchase Arbeiter Hall on the corner of Broadway Avenue and First Street North. They renamed it the Union Hall, and it became a popular gathering place for the community. Philip Gross died in 1895 at the age of 84, and the hotel passed on to new owners. By the 1890s, New Ulm had grown into a prosperous town, built on the 3 Bs, beer, bread, and Berg cigars. It was the third largest flower producer of all cities in Minnesota, the third largest cigar manufacturer, and the third largest brewing center. The city became widely known for its hospitality and its Gemütlichkeit, playing host to major conventions every year, the Sons of Herman, Turners, Catholic benevolent societies, and labor organizations. This growing number of travelers needed a place to stay, so Peter Manderfeld, the new owner of the Union Hotel, decided that more room was needed and a third floor was added. The manager at that time, Scott Smith, gave the property a new name, the Grand Hotel. And in the following decades, the Grand lived up to its name as one of the finest establishments in southern Minnesota. Through its doors came traveling salesmen, newlywed couples, and distant travelers who came to town for one of its many parades and festivals. After World War II, as roads improved and automobiles changed the face of America, a downtown hotel was no longer the place to stay. Hotels, one story with convenient parking, opened on either end of Broadway. Upstairs, the once elegant rooms became transient housing. By the 1970s, the Grand had changed owners several times. On the main floor, you might find a fudge and frame shop, or a barber shop, a laundromat at one time. Upstairs were cheap apartments. In 1987, the sound of music was heard again at the Grand when KNUJ Radio moved into second-floor studios. And then, in 1991, Philip Gross's great-great-great-grandson and namesake visited New Ulm with his daughter, Ann Makepeace.
And in about 1991, I had my first child, and I had become much more interested between the age of 25 and 35 when I had my first kid in family history, talked to my dad a lot, and I sent for a visitor's guide from New Ulm, and I opened it up and I said, wow, there's a great town here. Shell's Brewery, there's all kinds of things to do. So my dad and mom agreed when they came from Milwaukee, the next time we'd come to New Ulm, and I booked 3 nights at the Holiday Inn. And we arrived in town, and the very first place we went was the Brown County Historical Society. And I walked into the research library, and I didn't know who she was at the time, but it was Darla Gebhardt. And Darla, I said, do you have anything on Philip Gross? And she went, oh, Philip Gross, oh yes. And she handed me a big, huge file. And she said, and there's a building downtown, it's on the National Register. So
it was the beginning of a new dream as Anne returned to New Ulm again and again.
After that, started coming to Heritage Fest, joined the Junior Pioneers. My dad and I put the marker on the building in 1997. So, there were a lot of steps. We started loving the town. And at one point, I was having a discussion with family members, and somebody said, "What would you do if you could do anything?" And I said, "I'd buy that building and I'd renovate it." And that family member and my family said, "Well, we'll help you with that." So my family helped us buy the building in 2000, and we moved here, and the rest is what's here.
Anne had Philip Gross's determination, and through her efforts in 2009, the Grand Center for Arts and Culture, a nonprofit organization, was formed. Soon after that, planning began for a renovation of the building to bring it into the 21st century, while maintaining the highest standards of historic preservation.
Well, I loved taking off layers of paint and finding old wallpaper and fixing, finding an old transom window and putting it back in its place. I mean, my favorite part is really the preservation of the building and the history, which is art. I mean, that's art. Look at this building is art, so that's my favorite. Yeah.
As a result of the work, in 2015, the Grand received the prestigious Minnesota Preservation Award. Now, as one of the finest centers in southern Minnesota, the Grand is offering a home for the arts. On any given day, you might step inside to view a current exhibit in the Four Pillars Gallery, or on the first floor listen to rock, folk, jazz, or the blues in the Grand Cabaret. In the basement, you'll find the Cellar Press, where young and old can try their hand at letterpress printing. Throughout the year, the Grand offers interesting and challenging classes. In the summer, a youth camp brings kids together for fun built around the arts.
Well, my vision is that this building become a fully functioning art center on all 4 floors. Lots of people, lots of energy. Today we had a children's art camp here. So I want kids, I want adults, I want old people here. I want everybody to come to the Grand, be involved. I think that New Ulm has a strong history of arts and culture, and this can be a hub. So.
More than 160 years ago, the city's founders asked the question, what kind of town will New Ulm be? We're still asking that question, and the answer remains remarkably the same. A town that promotes commerce, education, and good fellowship, and one that fosters the arts. That vision, written so long ago, lives on at the Grand Center for Arts and Culture.